One of the worst generic lords and lords of magic in the game against one of the most powerful units in the game, even so much, and I believe it's still banned under most tournament rule sets because of how cheap it is, and the fact that it's basically a flying mortis engine with no counter. Yeah, there are just a number of factions that don't really have effective answers to the Thunder Barge, even though it has been nerfed successively and certainly is less oppressive than it used to be. But here today we're going to see a Wicked try and take it on with his Bretonnia. He's got a Prophetess of Heavens with some Hippogriff Knights there, Grail Guardians, it looks like Peasant Mobs, Archers, and some Peasant Bowmen as well. Got some men-at-arms with shields here, and some more peasant mobs, lots of peasant mobs, more questing knights over here as well. Slayers and giant slayers with Ungrim leading the charge, or the defense rather, nothing charging here. Except maybe these miners with charges as they make their way forward. We've got some dwarf warriors here as well. Looks like quarrelers. Yeah, we're going to see already some bombardments. The vanguarded green knight as well running in here to start to disrupt. We see the Comet land there is going to do some pretty good damage to the cannon crew. Fortunately did not get a tear route there, but Green Knight then detaches to come chase these quarrelers. You can see getting shot by the cannons of the Thunder Barge. Those Hippogriff Knights starting to close the distance here. Prophetess herself keeping her distance. As the questing knights come forward, they're able to mostly avoid getting blasted by charges, overrun into the second line, and get into those quarrelers. Start buttering that sweet garlic bread of Dowie. I don't know why garlic. But certainly getting hot with those blasting charges. Flying in, no doubt doing a little bit of friendly fire to those quarrelers, as is the Thunder Barge. Malachi definitely going to be held responsible for that. Get an early fight between Ungrim and the Green Knight. Ungrim doesn't have magic damage, but Axe of Dargo, Heroic Killing Blow, makes his weapon strength so high that he effectively just bypasses the physical resistance through sheer force, which is something. Green Knight definitely taking a lot of damage there. Does have the ability to regenerate some health through hiding in the woods, given his Sacred Guardian passive trait. But Hippogriff Knights have engaged. You can see the shotgunners here on Thunder Barge firing into the Hippogriffs as they attack. Quite the mass of wings and guns. Cannons both. I don't know if they can fire in melee, but the shotgunners definitely can. And you can see they're felling some of the knights there as the Hippogriffs take damage. They're going to do damage as well, but no healing available for the Hippogriffs as there's no Lore of Life. Questing Knights, Grail Guardians rather, you manage to get into the Iron Drakes. Those Trollhammer torpedoes with their anti-large shooting attacks are going to be quite good. I'm not sure what they're targeting, if anything, right now. Let's get in close and see. Looks like they might also be shooting a little bit at the Hippogriffs. Now on the move, hard to say. Haven't used too much ammunition, but Thunder Barge trying to drop whatever bombs it can on those peasants before it gets taken out. Which seems pretty likely. The archers, peasant archers, got involved a little bit here. Some pox arrows flying in, helping to contribute a little bit of damage. The Slayers, though, countercharging, just wrecking through the Bretonian infantry formation. Definitely some interesting play on both sides here, but the Knights of Bretonnia so far have been able to work well in tandem with the infantry, help kind of break up this Dwarven defensive position here. That being said, there's still plenty of game left as the Thunder Barge falls. Yeah, Bretonnia has some of the best flying units in the game as these Hippogriff Knights stand in their saddles and cheer. Bretonnia has some of the best flying units in the game, and especially anti-large flying units in the game, so you would expect that they should be able to kill the Thunder Barge, given they have some of the best counters. Again, there's a lot of factions in the game that don't have nearly as effective of counters, but that being said, blasting charges being used on peasants is a very effective use of the peasants themselves, and the remaining Hippogriff Knights, all four of them, going to charge in to this big block of Dowie infantry along with the Guardians. There's some questing knights mixed in there. Got some peasants, men-at-arms. This is all of Bretonnia, basically, in a nutshell. See the Green Knight riding around in the background through the wreckage of the... that's a pretty cool shot right there as he phases through. Whoop. I guess he is a ghost after all, so technically makes sense for him. But anyway. Yeah, he's going to charge through. There's a Grail Relic also here, just in case, I guess, to support melee attack. Makes sense a little bit, but, you know. With the Green Knight, going to get a quick tear route in on those miners. Dwarves, of course, have great leadership, but in this late game scenario, there's a lot of units that will be vulnerable to getting tear routed. Basically anything that's not a Slayer. There's no Longbeards here. Don't see Longbeards really these days. Used to be the go-to infantry choice, but I feel like a lot of mid-tier infantry are just kind of in a weird place right now. It's not really worth bringing. But, yeah, let's see here. How are things faring on the side of Bretonnia? More questing and grails forming up for another charge. More Hippogriff Knights getting ready as the Dwarves try and reassemble themselves. They're quite spread out, and more magic damage as well. Little Wind Blast going to do some chip of damage, I guess, on the Slayers. Every little bit helps, certainly, and the Damsel has not even got 1,000 damage value yet. The game's been going on for 6 minutes, so one of the reasons why, I mean, it is against Dwarfs, to be fair, but Heaven's arguably one of the worst lores in the game. Not to be confused. I mean, any lore magic is good, and if you were, say, Khorne, and you had access to only a caster with Lore of Heavens, you would definitely take them still, because, yeah, it's still magic, and can be very effective, but we're going to see a little Comet here. Try and land on some Slayers. Yeah, it does some pretty good damage to these Dwarf Warriors. Giant Slayers took a little chunk right there as well. Definitely finished off those peasants. Their sacrifice for the lady will be not noted or remembered by anyone, but definitely happened. Yeah, the Green Knight also trying to rally the troops here, maybe chase some rotting units. So there's going to be a bit of fast forwarding as this game gets towards its second phase, or third quarter, whatever sport you prefer analogy. But 2 Hippogriff Knights remaining can also act as mobile kind of chasing units at this point, chasing routing stuff, making sure they keep things shattered, especially with that terror. As long as they don't take much damage, there's not a lot right now that can really threaten them unless they charge in against some of these elite units, which may happen in the late game if they're forced to, but for the time being, definitely smart to just take out whatever you can. So that will be the name of the game for Bretonnia. They've got some more field trebuchet ammo, so might as well just pull back at this point. Chase whatever isolated units you can, punish them, allow the trebuchet to use some of its ammo as the dwarfs are forced to advance across the field as natural sprinters. They should be well suited to this, but most units at this point are probably going to be getting exhausted, with the exception of those with the Blessing of the Lady, or this Perfect Vigor, rather. It's not actually tied to Blessing of the Lady, but yeah. Perfect Vigor on these Hippogriff Knights means they're going to be operating at full efficiency, as will the Grail Guardians. Let's see another, let's say, sacrificial drop here as the Comet lands right on the Slayer Blob. Pretty good damage, maybe not 100% maximum efficiency, but still, both these multi-model Slayer units are getting quite low at this point. The Slayer King, again, the same can't be said of him, as he is quite healthy, but getting peppered by whatever arrows remain. Certainly want to do that damage at range if you can. Little hammer and anvil here with these men-at-arms. The isolated dwarf warriors still fighting around the wreckage here of the Thunder Barge as the Green Knight charges in once more. They get a quick tear route. And Hippogriffs bring a tribute on that, breaking that last dwarf warrior, and we're back on fast forward as the dwarfs try and rally. And despite what the balanced power may have you think, these Slayer units are definitely quite dangerous. Ungrim in particular definitely needs to be respected at this point. If Bretonnia were to just charge in and stand there, they would probably lose. So you're gonna see some like making sure every single unit is broken here until basically Ungrim's the last thing left, and then probably cycle charging him to death, which, you know, some people are going to hate that ending, but that's definitely how the games go sometimes, and this is a ladder game, there's no tournament rules necessarily, you can tell because of the Thunder Barge, and, you know, even still, I think this would maybe be skirting the edge later on attacking rule stuff, but I'd have to check the specifics of the wording. Honestly, as long as there's multi-model units still alive, They can do a lot of different things. They have quite a bit of agency in what they can do. But a quick little engagement here. You can see Ungrim kind of been saving those weapon strength buffs. Does pop them. We could immediately running the Green Knight away. Again, the right thing to do. Continue applying pressure to these Giant Slayers here, who have acquitted themselves spectacularly, it must be said. 275 kills, like 1,400 damage value. But they are going to get cycle charged by Knights in this late game here. They don't have numbers or mass to stand up against these, especially in the Lance formation. The numbers and mass of these Knights here, which doesn't look like they're actually using mass right now, but that's okay. I want to save that extra 8 melee defense, which is understandable. I love how Ungrim, too, just, like, goes and stands on the on the trebuchets and kind of rests for a second. This is also technically something you can do. He is recovering his vigor, which is going to help him in this late game, potentially. But just kind of daring the trebuchet crew, like, yeah, come and get it. Making sure they actually cannot come back and get it. But here we go, final engagement. Knights charge in. And they charge out, and we're going to put it back and fast forward because that's going to be how this will continue. Ungrim does what he should, which is just stand and fight as best he can. But ultimately, as big as he is, now he'll be able to slay some Knights here, certainly. But the Green Knight especially is the one kind of key piece cycle charging here. Without him, this definitely wouldn't be working, but with him, I mean, maybe with the Guardians, they'd be enough to kill them by themselves. It should be said. They have pretty good overall stats, and that perfect vigor means they're still fighting, like I said, at full strength, right? That 120 armor, 61 melee defense. Ungrim is 49 melee attack. He's got 30 bonus versus large, so definitely doesn't hurt for melee attack. Doesn't seem like it probably matters that much against the Guardians. Well, it does matter to a degree, but... yeah. Yeah, you see him standing. The biggest thing is that Ungrim has one of the oldest designed characters in the game. You know, one of the original Warhammer 1 Legendary Lords. Animation set is not super well... I shouldn't say super well designed. It was designed at a different time, let's say, and to a different standard. And, you know, sometimes it means, as you saw there, he can kind of get staggered around a little bit. His animations are a little bit slow as well with that big two-handed weapon. So, yeah, ultimately is not able to pull out the win, and Wicked takes it home, taking down the dreaded Thunder Barge, which, you know, despite being directly countered, is still able to accrue a massive amount of value and damage. Yeah, Hippogriff Knights, 15,000 damage dealt, 3,681 gold value, absolutely incredible. Both the armor-piercing Knights here, respectable as well. I'm surprised Questing Knights maybe didn't get a little bit more value, but still, overall 10,000 damage dealt. It's definitely tactically what you need here. Real Guardians do straight up pay for themselves, which is nice, pretty much. Yeah, and then the rest is interesting. The Damsel of Heavens is definitely a unit that exists. Green Knight also, I guess tactically some terror routes and some different support was helpful, and tanks some damage as well at times. I don't know how helpful that is, but yeah. Anyway, interesting build from the Dwarfs as well. I know it's the latter games, can't really take it necessarily too seriously, but yeah, the Slayers and the Giant Slayers is probably something you want more of in this build, and maybe rely less on these ranged units, which can ultimately let you down. Like, honestly, just the Thunder Barge and, like, all Slayers would be super, super scary. Maybe, like, you know, one gun unit to try and shoot threats out of the sky. Wouldn't really take a lot, to be honest, but fun stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.